let's talk about my interview in Politico. And I encourage people to check out Politico, the weekend playbook on Sunday, the Sunday edition. So yesterday edition, still up there. Y'all can check it out. And you will see that I was featured. Let me bring up my notes here, fam. I used to do this all from the dome, but it is, I want to make sure I don't miss nothing. So, so the Politico Weekend Playbook article by Ali Blanco. The article is titled, the issue Democrats have been scared to run on. The issue Democrats have been scared to run on. So for people to, people to follow politics closely know that Democrats for quite some time have been shied away from talking about immigration until very recently, with this obvious ICE problem incursion in all of our lives. And, there's a couple dynamics in play here, fam, so people don't understand the dynamics. People, and they say this in polling, even Democratic-leaning voters, Democrat, they don't trust Democrats on immigration. They don't feel they're either forceful enough on the border and forceful enough, do the enforcement part right. They're either too soft on it or incompetent. They don't think we're good at it, just dealing with the issue. And the other dynamic is that this administration has totally turned around the conversation because of how Trump has handled immigration issues and border enforcement, especially in the interior, because people are absolutely disgusted by ICE's behavior, fam. I mean, the polling's unbelievable. Look at the polling, fam. Really look at the polling and really see where this country's at, beyond just kind of like the normal Democratic base and the Trump haters. Half of the country statistically would be fine with abolishing ICE altogether, fam. That's unprecedented. President Donald Trump has done more to develop support for comprehensive immigration reform than Democrats have done in 10 years. That's how out of pocket Trump has been on ICE enforcement, where you're getting people thinking that way. I encourage people to read the article by Ali Blanco and Politico. There's some interesting takes for a lot of friends, associates, people that we know in the advocacy and political space. Their takes on if, how, and when Democrats will engage in immigration as an issue. As a policy discussion, obviously there's still DHS continual DHS funding on the table in Washington. We encourage people to call their members of Congress and say, heck no, do not give these people another dime until we get some real protections as it relates to, some accountability so that ICE doesn't, set aflame our Constitution every day with the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the 10th Amendment. I don't know if you saw in Jersey City, some idiot ICE goons going into an apartment complex and a city councilman on video. A city councilman in Jersey City asked the ICE officials, do you have a warrant to go to one of these apartments where you're going up this elevator in this apartment complex? Some guy, I'm pretty sure it was Latino, and I'm pretty sure it was Puerto Rican by his steez and his accent and all that, and his look. Almost certainly Hispanic at least. Says, oh, we don't need them anymore. Like a big dodo. So we need some real protections before we vote for another dime for these people. So the focus of my comments were, I said, Democrats are going to lean in immigration as an issue. First of all, Trump is giving you a major opportunity by being totally out of pocket on the issue. It gives Democrats an opportunity to, first of all, show a spine. This is an issue currently right in front of us now and leading up to the midterms where, we not only can hold them accountable on the DHS funding, we can hold them accountable in local community by local community around ICE enforcement as they maraud and scale their operations around the country. We can stand up to them as it relates to the creation of these concentration camps, these detention centers, fam, that they are buying. Look, this is going to be my big issue this year, is leaning in on the fact that I'm not saying we shouldn't be, doing the peaceful protesting and the observing in the streets as they're grabbing our loved ones and friends and neighbors. We absolutely should be doing that. But we need to be going to if your community is considering allowing ICE to open up a detention facility in your community, you do everything you can, your city council level, your zoning boards, your county boards, to say, heck no, do not authorize a concentration camp that's going to torture people And God knows what else they'll do, especially to our women, our young women in these facilities. The harm, the violence, the sexual assault that we're already getting reports is taking place, the starvation, the psychological torture, the physical torture. They said a guy rammed his head into a wall by him. He literally rammed his head into a wall himself. They really believed that we would believe that. Could not let any of these facilities open. Those are concentration camps. People are going to die. People are going to keep dying. We've had close to 40 people die in ICE because of ICE in the last 12 months. 9 in the 2026, and y'all know the ones you saw in video yourself. So if they're willing to kill white people in broad daylight in front of everybody with cameras in front of you so you could see it, what do you think's happening to Latino and minority immigrants, and especially these young women? I'm going to keep focusing on that because y'all know it's going to be uncomfortable if y'all think about it. In the dark. We have no idea. There's people that they're unaccounted for. So we don't even know how many people are dead because of these people. So Dems need to lean in. They need to lean in, and they need to show. It's not just enough to say they just can't play prevent defense. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're just going to allow Trump to self-destruct, and say he's a bad guy. No, they need to show voters. They need to have a proactive vision. What is your vision for border enforcement that's smart, that's efficient, that actually deals with the issues we have around getting fentanyl coming in and, and trafficking people and all that stuff? Those are legitimate issues. And, having people, a manageable system, but also how are we going to address what now everyone's realizing, which is the vast majority of immigrants and undocumented immigrants in this country. There's people that are in a lot of different statuses, that these sort of gray areas of applying for asylum and have temporary work permit visas. And, they're in the system on some level, or they're trying to do it the right way. But we have bureaucracy, we have legal backlogs. Trump's making it increasingly more difficult for people to even try to do it the right way. And how are we going to have a manageable system that not only addresses the long-term undocumented, but what's good for the country economically? Our legal immigration system is $1 million a year. That's just sort of a random number that sounds like a nice round number that doesn't sound like too much to scare white people. I mean, really, the reality of it. The reality of it is, if you really look at it from we need to have an honest, real economic conversation with the country. If you look at it, really, it should probably be more like 3 to 5 billion. And part of the reason I say that is that obviously that's what the labor market needs, because if this undocumented population wasn't needed from an economic perspective to work, they wouldn't be able to survive here, and they'd self-deport. So obviously, there's an economic benefit to these people being here already. And Democrats have to do it because they need a positive vision, not just for immigration, a proactive vision, but for the affordability issues, which are the predominant issue. Healthcare access, and preserve our democracy, man. How y'all gonna do that? Because, by the way, 2026, the midterms may not happen unless you stand up to this guy now. He put on True Social today. Yeah. Well, we should, or he interviewed with Bongino Show. Okay, we should just take over the state's voting systems. All the Latinos are illegal. None of us are citizens. So all the Latinos you see that vote in these places like Arizona and Texas that just flipped the special election in Texas, and the Latinos in New Jersey that voted in Virginia that voted overwhelmingly numbers for those Democratic female gubernatorial candidates, and the Latinos that voted overwhelmingly to redistrict in California so that we could balance out the nonsense they're doing in Texas and other places. Now, all those Latinos, they're all just illegal. None of those people really are American citizens. That's what he's saying, fam. You may not want to believe it because you're drinking the Kool-Aid, but that's what it is. Just listen for yourself. Because I'm not going to spend a lot of time babysitting you at this point. We have organizing to do. I've said that on social media already. I'm not going to attack you. I'm just going to ignore you, because while you're talking all that nonsense, I'm actually going to do things to protect your daughters and your loved ones, because I don't want your Latina college student that's driving to her community college class in between her job at T-Mobile to get stopped by one of these ICE goons and take her away, and you may never see her again. I don't want that to happen. I don't even care who you vote for. I don't want that to happen to a young lady. And I'm going to keep doing this to do everything I can so that those young ladies and other vulnerable people in our community, shit, all of us, nothing like that happened to them. But you keep believing what you see on YouTube, fam. I'm not going to argue with you. And by the way, it's not only just kind of the right thing to do for Democrats to lean in on this immigration conversation, it's also politically necessary, because you're going to hear this a lot on the Collazo Show, fam, is that for the House to flip to Democrat, they have to engage Latino voters. The vast majority of the 25 or so most competitive seats, because we only have about, if you're stretching at 40, I think it'll be more, to be honest, but that's another conversation. But, those several dozen, 2 or 3 dozen competitive seats around the country, and they're spread out all over the place. Most of them, the vast majority of them, in places like California, South Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Pennsylvania, believe it or not, have at least 20% plus Latinos in them, all over the country. Florida, everywhere. New York State, Jersey got a couple. They're all over the place. Southeast, and North Carolina, and Virginia, places like that. So, to really do this flip, and if you have any shot at the Senate, you got to get the Latino part right, because you can't win. Democrata no puede ganar. Asif can't get reelected. You can't flip a Democrat to a Democrat in North Carolina for the Senate seat. Sino hispano. The numbers just aren't there. And yeah, they're only like 5 to 8%, but that's the margin. So, and the only one that's really figured that out in the South is Stacey Abrams. Hence her success. And Democrats like Warnock and Ossoff's success, because she built that infrastructure. But, for those kind of marginalized communities. And by the way, API piece, she got done better than most in Georgia. So imagine if we tap that around the country. We're going to talk a lot about that this year in terms of the states. I'm going to have congressional candidates on the Collazo Show. I'm going to have other political analysts to break down these different states. I have state directors. I have all kind of cool people that can give you the insight on where the vibe in Texas and in Arizona and Pennsylvania and all these different Latino pockets. There's a lot of very interesting conversations happening at the intersection of this immigration conversation, and really about like the literal and figurative soul of the Latino community, because we've got, I think it's probably like 40% of the Latino community. That's like where I'm at. It's just totally horrified by this whole fucking thing, and just can't imagine how we got into this. We've got like a quarter that are with this guy, and I don't think there's much we're gonna be able to do about that, because they're just convinced that Trump equals God, and your association. If you love God, you got to be with this guy, and once it's in that mode, fam, it's hard to compete with that, and that's going to be a thing that I'm not going to, there's only so much I'll be able to do about that. We're going to be able to do about that. So we have to kind of let that quarter. And by the way, some of them were down with him because their husband finally got a decent job. He's making some money, and he's got health benefits because he's ICE. That's some of that, fam. That's some of it. So all that, there's a part of our community that is benefiting economically from destroying their neighbors and friends' lives. So we're going to be limited with them. And then there's that other middle, that other third or so, and they're kind of politically in the middle. They go back and forth. They may have voted for Biden, and they voted for Trump, and they voted for. They don't like this bullshit, but they ain't really down with Democrats either. So we've got a lot of work to do, fam.